Everyone. We have about 30 more seconds until 9 o'clock. Once 9 o'clock hits, we are going to get started. All right. So it is 9 o'clock. We are going to get started. Thanks for joining us today. We have John Rondinero presenting for pavement maintenance today. This is PDH worthy, so those will be sent out if you are on for 90% of the webinar. You can always check with us later to make sure if you're not sure of the timing. If you are out of state, please check with your local LTAP for any of the PDH credits. And John, we are all set for you to take over.
Awesome, Jody. Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Appreciate you joining us. As Jody mentioned, my name is John Rondinero. I'm an instructor for the Cornell Local Roads program, and I cover both the pavement maintenance program and the asphalt paving program. We're doing pavement maintenance this year, and then we'll be doing asphalt paving again next year. So hope to continue to see folks. Jumping right into it. Maybe. Yeah, we're having a little funky time with our technology this morning. So just there we go. I'm gonna like I said, a little funkiness with the technology, but we're gonna get us through it. A little bit about my background before we get started. I'm an ex-DOTer, retired in 2020 after 36 years at the department. Spent the early part or the late part of the 90s as the state's pavement maintenance engineer. And then in 2003, I was asked to take on the role of the department's director of materials engineering. And that's what I retired from. And so pavement and pavement maintenance, pavement repairs are big part of my career. And I really love pavements. So going to touch on a real important part of our pavement program, and that's our maintenance techniques. And we're going to be talking about the three primary techniques we use: crack repairs, patching, and wearing courses. And if you notice at the bottom of the slide, we've listed where you can find the workbook that we use for our extended workshop. Strongly suggest that anybody in this business take a look at that. It's a real nice resource, and gives you shares a lot of important information that we think is very valuable to any pavement practitioner. And we'll also be posting that link in the Q&A. I mean, in the chat. And speaking of that, talking about our housekeeping, we've got we do a little bit different with the settings for Zoom. You've got your chat. That's where we've locked you out of that. We use that to post any of the important info that we want to share with you, including the handout for today's session and any of the links to manuals or other kind of important information. We'll be using the raise hand function occasionally just to get a sense of what folks are yes or no type of questions. And then any kind of question that you have that as we go along, pop it into the Q&A. Jody will be monitoring it, and she'll pop in every once in a while and mention that we've got a question or two that we'll try to cover. And in terms of PDHs, Jody already mentioned it, but it's worth reminding you. You get a PDH here in New York, but it only goes to the person who's registered. It is counted as a course. So you've got to be registered individually. If you're from other states, strongly suggest you check with your LTAP center, because there's a lot of reciprocal agreements between the states now. So we're going to do a little bit of poll EV work for anybody that hasn't taken our webinars. We pose a bunch of questions just to get a feel for our audience, and folks are logging in now. Jody, how many folks have we got registered today? or participating today?
I'm not sure the actual number that were registered. Right now, we have about 75 people on, but I am not sure about the
Awesome,
number that were
awesome. So
registered.
great. So as people look at the percentages, you're working from a baseline of about 75. So we've got a nice representation today. We got about a 30, 25 or so folks from the counties, another 13 to 15% coming from our cities and villages. We got some of our state and federal colleagues joining us. We got a bunch of another 25 folks from the private side, and then the folks that are in my category working for the weekend. All right, great. We'll move on to the next one. Nice cross section of folks, and let us know what your job is currently. All right, looking like we got a lot of engineers in the the audience. That makes sense because we're doing this for a PDH, and we engineers have to stay on top of our PDHs. But got a handful of administrators in the audience as well, and that's wonderful. Thank you. All right, looking at our how long we've been in our positions. There we go. Here we go. We got a nice cross section of experience in our current positions. We've got a bunch of folks that are between 0 to 2 years, and then we got a bunch of folks that are outside of that, running from the 3 to 10, and then the 10 to 20 plus. So nice cross section of experience. Really appreciate that. My favorite, where are you logging in from? I'm a Capital District guy. Okay, we got a bunch of folks from swinging in from Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, up the southern tier. Excellent. Oh, got a nice representation from Long Island and the lower upstate region. Nice, handful of folks from the Capital District. And my favorite, somebody's logging in from Lake Ontario. Oh, I want to know who that is out on the boat because I want to join you someday. Nobody in the Long Island Sound though today. I'm a little surprised about that. Okay, excellent. Nice cross section of folks from across the state. Really appreciate it. And then I'm going to clear our poll EV. But before we get started, before we're jumping right into it, I want to see if we get our brains warmed up and talk a little bit of astrophysics and the observable universe. And you're probably scratching your head right now saying, what is he up to? Okay. Universe, the observable universe is 14 billion years old. That's a pretty big number. Hard to get your brain wrapped around that. It's the observable universe is 93 billion light years across. And I keep saying the term observable universe because that's as far as we can see with any of our latest technology. And just mentioning that technology, this is an image from the James Webb Space Telescope, one they posted last around Christmas, around the into December, around the holidays, because it looks like a Christmas tree display, Christmas light display. Within that 93 billion light years of observable universe, 2 trillion galaxies with 100 billion stars per galaxy. So now your head is really spinning. You do the math. That is a monstrous number of stars. That's a 2 with a lot of zeros. There's an argument whether it's 23 or 24 zeros. By my math, it's 23. In any case, that's a mind-boggling number. So it does make you shake your head a little bit and wonder what's out there besides us. But that's not the reason why we're here today. We're talking about a more earthly kind of experience. Okay, here's the technology. It is bouncing us all around. Come on, gotta get us back. There. Oh yeah. Okay. So sorry, folks. I apologize. My computer is not playing nice today. Oh, but I do love that picture of the stars. Come on, baby. Well, this is this is a good segue to offer you to come to one of my workshops, because if you think this is fun, join me for an in live experience. So yeah, this is more like it, something we can wrap our heads around. Let's talk pavement maintenance. And this is typically what we're seeing out on our roads and streets today. And when we talk about our roads and streets, we've got to apply some sort of framework, and that framework that we apply is our pavement management framework. And it starts with our roads. They're the backbone of our economy. That's the way we move our goods and people from point A to point B. And to be able to make sure that we do, take care of business and take care of our infrastructure and our systems, it requires us to inventory our roadways and our conditions. And that then allows us to plan and perform our required work. And the primary principles for anybody that's in this business is well established. Your pavement management framework is based on the right repair at the right place at the right time, and my own personal add in favorite, in the right way. So looking at a typical pavement deterioration curve, I expect everybody's pretty familiar with this. You're starting with a pavement in a brand new or like new condition, so it's in excellent shape, but over time it's going to continue to deteriorate. And then if you're not taking care of it, at some point in time over the life of that pavement, it kind of bottoms out. It's in a terrible condition, but it can't get much worse. If you look at that same type of curve and apply the different types of work that are applicable over the life of that pavement, when it's still in good shape, we're doing our routine maintenance. We're doing things like our mowing, our shoulder work, our ditching. We're also doing our preventive maintenance work, which means we're doing it in advance of any kind of deterioration. In that category, we put our crack sealing and any of our surface treatments. Then sometimes, despite our best efforts, we're going to have some areas that are getting a little shaky. So those particular areas are starting to get a little rough. We need to perform our corrective maintenance, and that's where we're doing our patching work primarily. And over time, pavements continue to deteriorate, especially if you're not taking good care of them. So that's where we then start to, as that condition falls into the fair and poor category, we start to look at our rehabilitation and reconstruction. So, quick question: what do you think is the most cost-effective way to keep your road system in good shape? You got two choices. Let me see what you got. All right, 100%. That is a fact. That's fantastic. You've got to be applying your maintenance treatments while they're still in good shape. Why do we do that? Well, I think many of you have probably already seen this curve. If you're taking care of business and hitting that pavement while it's still in good shape, for every dollar of maintenance that you're spending while it's still in good shape, if you're not doing that work, it's going to cost you $4 to $5 at least. These are really conservative numbers. Probably some of the estimates show $10 to $20 in rehab costs if you delay it till that pavement is in poor condition. So we talk about our pavement maintenance, and we've mentioned already, those are those inexpensive repairs on our good roads to keep that pavement in good shape. And we're definitely doing it for a handful of reasons, primarily to maintain safety. It is protecting our public's investment. It's making the best use of our limited resources. And altogether, that gives us the best bang for the buck. We don't want our pavements looking like that. We want our pavements looking like this. And again, we don't want them looking like this, because if nothing else, this is a huge safety issue. Might not be the equivalent of a bridge falling down, but to the individual motorist, it's a very dangerous situation, especially if you're on two wheels. Motorcyclists, I was one when I was a young lad, that scared the living daylights out of me. So we got a pretty standard process we use when picking our repairs that are appropriate to the condition of the road. We look at the distresses, we're analyzing the probable causes, we're evaluating our alternatives, and then we decide on what the appropriate treatment repair options are. And when you take a look at that image, you got to ask yourself, not quite sure what they were thinking when they decided to crack seal in that pattern. So when you talk about our specific repair options, you can break it down into two major categories. You've got our pavement maintenance options, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit more detail today, and in great detail in our workshops this spring. You've got your crack repairs, your patching, your aerial repairs, and your thin wearing courses. We'll talk more about each of those later in a little bit. And then you've got that other major category, your pavement rehab treatments. That's where you're adding some structural strength. You're either adding or restoring structural strength. On the pavement maintenance side, no structural strength is added or restored. And in the category of rehab, you've got your overlays, your mill and fills, your recycling, reclamation or stabilization, your reconstructions. So as we go through that treatment selection process, you're going through and observing and inventorying those distresses. You're looking at your cracking, your alligator cracking, transverse, longitudinal cracking. You're looking at your disintegration, which is simply your cracks turning into potholes. You're looking at your other surface type of defects. That's where you're looking at raveling, bleeding, polishing, those things that are actually happening at the surface and affecting the stopping. Primarily, you're stopping, stopping and friction of the pavement surface. And then last but not least, your surface deformations, your rutting, shoving, corrugations, all those kind of things. And once you identify the type of distress, you're then going to rate it in terms of your extent and severity of the distress. Pretty simple approach. You can be as simple as low, medium, and high for both the extent, which means the density within the given pavement section, and the severity. And then you're going to be analyzing the causes. And this is really the most important part of the analysis process. You've got to be looking at what's causing that distress you're seeing on the surface. Is it drainage? Is it your trucks and traffic? Particularly your trucks, because they're doing a tremendous amount of damage, especially if you only got a thin pavement section. Your weather, the different climatological impacts, all those kind of things have to be looked at to make to really understand what you're going to need to do as a repair. So you marry that all together. You take your analysis process, you marry it up with the tools in the toolbox, and you've got a pretty straightforward way to pick your treatment repairs. So, quick question: when we're picking a treatment, what's that fundamental question we need to ask? And just shoot in some shoot in anything that comes to mind. Good answer. I see dollar signs. See more dollar signs. What do we need to fix? Yep, very good. Cost. Yep, absolutely. Couple I'm thinking extendable. Absolutely, excellent. Budget, excellent. All right, I'm going to throw two out. Safety. All right, excellent. What's causing the problem? Safety issues, and how's the drainage? Because if you've got a situation like you see in this picture, this is a picture that we've been allowed to use a road from the Saratoga area. Gentleman Jay Olson shared it with us, and he on his image he posted, drainage is critical for roadway design, and ducts are an indicator of poor drainage. And boy, that rings true with me. You see something like this, before you fix anything else, you got to fix that standing water problem. And there, we've got a couple tools in the toolbox, or tools in the manuals, that I want to just make you aware of. When you're picking your treatments, there's a nice table on table 4 on page 34 of the pavement maintenance handbook or workbook. Gives you your different types of treatments and when they're most appropriate. And as you can see, I took a picture rather than giving you a different, just a clean page, because I love to get in there and mark things up as I start to, start to see things that make, help me clarify my decision making. And I would strongly encourage you to do the same thing. And then we've got another table that we'll talk about in a little bit, but it helps you focus a little bit more on crack repairs. So let's quick show of hands, and I'm going to ask Jody to help me out here. Is this a good pavement maintenance can? Jody, we seeing any hands?
Yep, we have about 10 participants.
Okay.
It's going up.
Okay. Yep, I would agree. And we'll talk about this in a minute. How about this one? Good maintenance candidate?
You have about 24.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Good. Okay. How about this one? Good maintenance candidate?
We're staying at about 16, 17.
Okay. So about a third of our participants are all saying these are good maintenance candidates. How about this one?
It's teetering around 12 to 13.
I'm sorry, what was the number, Jody?
It was about 12. Now it's about 12 participants raised hands.
Good. Yeah, well, yeah, and I think we're all it's from those numbers, that's showing we're all pretty much on the same page. But I'm gonna say one thing about this picture we're on right now. You probably have to answer yes, that it's a good maintenance candidate, because that's exactly what the folks are doing with this candidate. Is with all those patches, they're continuing to come in and use small skim patches just to fix the worst conditions. Now, if you answered no, you're right as well, because they're getting to the point where they're going to be having to patch the whole thing. It's time for a rehab. So start going back to this one for a second. It's definitely a good candidate if this was the way the entire section looked, or if you were looking at this as an image from a couple years ago. Right now, you got a lot of surface cracking. Doesn't look like anything's really falling apart yet. You really can't do, with the amount of cracking that you got there, the density of cracking, you can't do crack sealing, but you certainly could hit it with a surface treatment. And here's a perfect example of a pavement that would be triggering your interest in doing a surface treatment, because you're looking at that pock-marked surface. This is, there's a lot of moisture in the air, so there's still a lot of moisture on that pavement surface. You're getting that pock-marked look, so that means that there's being water is being absorbed into the surface, but your pavement's in great shape. Again, you're just looking at it from a different angle. That pavement is in great shape. You want to be thinking about that one in terms of a surface treatment real soon, because this is when you get in a little closer, this is what you're starting to see. Now, again, these cracks aren't sufficient to start putting crack sealer down. You get another year or two of cracking like this, you're going to want to get crack sealer on it. But an alternative is, if you get on there with some sort of thin surface treatment, you're going to be sealing up that entire section and keeping the water out and keeping those cracks from developing in the first place. So that's where you start to look at your options. And just as an example, that's a perfect crack for crack sealing treatment. It's a nice, almost straight crack, nice, clean. There's not a lot of rattling on the edges. And that's exactly what my driveway needs. And that's what I'm looking for this year, is to get some crack sealer to those cracks. Now, going back to this picture, we were talking about, this was a couple years ago. That was, if this was a couple years ago, it'd be a great candidate for a surface treatment. The problem is that's what it looks like today. And this is what the rest of the section looks like. So we've let that pavement go too far in terms of being able to do any kind of surface treatment on it, and or any kind of crack repairs.
John,
Yep, Jody.
we have a question from an attendee that said, what is meant by surface treatment?
All right, when we talk about our surface treatments, it's a wide category. You're talking about chip seals, sand seals, slurry seals, microsurfacing, Nova chip, and our thin wearing courses, which would be an asphalt surface, a warm mix or a hot mix asphalt that's applied at less than an inch, which would be the DOT 6.3 millimeter mix. And we'll get into that a little bit further into the discussion. But anyways, this one, thank you, Jody. This one, if it was isolated, you could go in and do some patching, but at this point, too far gone. You got to get on there. You're now looking at either an overlay or a shallow mill and fill, but looking at those, matching up to those driveways, you're in the mill and fill category. So let's talk quickly about our crack repairs in chapter 6. That's where we covered, starting on page 35 of the manual. Real quick, why do we fill or seal our cracks in our pavements? Yep, right off the bat, keep the water out. Keep the water out. Everybody's on the same page. Excellent. So reduce the flow of water, debris into the pavement section, and that's going to reduce or prevent the rate deterioration. And you're basing it. Your repair is going to be based on your crack density, your edge deterioration, your width, and your movement. Nice table in the workbook, page 36, table 5, and it points out that in terms of crack repairs, you've got some choices. When you've got low density, low severity cracking, you're still in the nothing category. If you're high density, high level of deterioration, you're in the rehab category. And then you've got the crack sealing, patching, and surface treatment. In terms of the big difference here is crack sealing is designed to tackle working cracks, which means they're moving greater than 1/8 of an inch between seasons. Materials, that means they're elasticized, they're highly flexible, they're going to break. Crack filling is a non-engineered material that doesn't move on a moving crack. And my computer is not playing nice right now, folks. I apologize for the delay. Perfect crack for crack sealing. Great shape, not a lot of edge deterioration. I'm trying to pick up the pace and it's not playing nice. There we go. Here's an example of a crack. It is right apart.
John, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second.
Still allows it to be a good candidate is there's not a lot of technical error.
John, can you hear me?
Now,
Yeah.
now I hear you. Yeah.
John, can you hear me yet?
Did I lose you, Jody?
Yeah, your audio is breaking up.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. Sorry.
Thanks for bearing with us, guys. Looks like John's
Jody,
internet
you still have me?
John, it looks like your internet connection isn't strong and you're breaking up with the audio.
Huh. Well, Verizon and I are going to have a chat then. Any better?
A little bit better. So it's probably why there's a delay with the advancing of the screen as well.
I apologize, folks. They tell me I've got the best internet I can get, so I am not real happy about that, but thank you. Moving on. The last one was a crack that was on the edge of it, edge of being a decent candidate. When your cracks start looking like this, you're definitely out of the crack sealing business. You can't seal a crack like this. Way too much secondary interconnected cracking. That's a lot of alligator cracking already forming. And to top it all off, it's in a rutting section, and that means that there's other issues that you have to deal with. That crack sealing is not going to fix this problem. Any better, Jody and Amanda?
Yeah, it's better on my end.
Okay. And folks, when you see your pavement looking like this, definitely not a crack sealing candidate. If it's localized, it's a patching candidate. If it's extensive, if it's a high density, you've got to be doing some sort of rehab. It is just, I apologize, folks. Technology is not helping today. In terms of materials, we've got two basic types of materials that we use in filling, for filling. And I mentioned this before, they're non-engineered, they're conventional materials. On the sealing side, which is what we primarily use in terms of our DOT type work, these are modified materials. They're elasticized so that they're highly flexible and they'll move with the movement of the crack. In terms of our configurations, you've got flush fill over band, reservoir, standard configurations that you see in the business. And this is something we definitely don't want to see on any of our roadways. Upon a crack sealer, because there's no aggregate in that crack sealer, if you hit that, you're in a world of hurt, especially if you're on two wheels. In terms of the operations, pretty straightforward. Here we've got a picture of somebody routing in the crack. Gives you a nice channel. Cleaning and drying is critical. We keep this old slide in for a reason. Used to use it to point out that you should be checking the equipment to make sure that there's an oil water separator. And we were making the point that there is no oil water separator visible on this rig. However, it was pointed out by one of the other participants last year that particular IR rig has their oil water separator underneath the housing. So the main thing is you've got to have an oil water separator. You don't want to be blowing droplets of water and oil into your brand new cut crack, because I'm going to jump a slide. This is what happens if your crack isn't clean and dry. Apologize. Jump to. If your crack isn't clean and dry, that's freshly placed crack sealer material. That's a pretty expensive waste of time, because you put it in, it's not clean and dry, and it pulls right back out. Got to be clean and dry. And then just one other thing I wanted to point out: you can use a compressor system to clean that crack out. That's a pretty common way of doing it. The only thing you need to be careful of is that's a propane torch or a blowtorch that you're dragging along. You don't want to be burning the edges of the crack, because it's just going to make it crumble. And this is a typical rig you'd see out on the road. the toe behind unit. This is what you'd see in terms of up close of an application. At the end of the wand, you'd see at the end of the wand, you'd see a disc. So that allows you to under pressure, you're pushing the material into that nice clean crack. It gets it right down to the bottom, and then you've got a nice thin film material that seals over the top of the crack. In terms of your finishing, real simple way to finish off your crack. Simple is better in this case. Take a squeegee, put an inverted V on the end of it, and you're just running along the top of that newly placed crack sealing material. And this is the next picture will be of what you want to see in the end. You want to be able to put your fingertip into that newly placed material after it cools sufficiently, and so that you just get a little bit of an indent, and that allows you, it gives you some room for the movement of that crack during change of seasons, change of temperature. And then in terms of finishing off, come on. I don't know, this is probably not used anywhere. Hopefully it's not. But back in the good old days, even before I was in the business, they didn't want that. They didn't like the idea that they wanted to be able to get vehicles onto that pavement surface immediately. And the crack sealer wasn't advanced enough, so it was sticking to the tires, even as it was cooling. So now over the top of the crack. Not a good idea. It makes quite the mess for your brand new project. So definitely not recommended and not allowed per our DOT spec. And then in terms of weather conditions, the takeaway here is it's got to be nice and getting nicer. You want your temperature 40 and rising, you want low level of humidity, and no chance of rain either a couple days before or a couple days after the project. That gives you a fighting chance to make that crack sealing work. Now we're going to switch gears. Just a quick question though, to make sure we all got on the same page. What's the best way to treat moving cracks? Crack filling or crack sealing, and why?
John, while we're waiting for answers to come back, we do have a question. Is
Okay,
there a too high temperature?
For crack filling and crack sealing? I'm going to guess that's what the question is.
I'm going to think so too.
I've never seen it printed. I don't think there probably is, but that's a good one. We'll keep it that. Yeah. I've never heard anybody say that yes, that it's too high a temperature. However, if you're in the 100-degree range, if your pavement temperature is 100 degrees, you got bigger problems than worrying about your crack sealing. So I wouldn't, you do in high temperatures, you do want to pay attention to. So everybody is saying crack sealing, absolutely, because it keeps the crack. You need to use that elasticized material to be able to deal with the moving cracks. Great, good job, folks. All right, moving on, we're going to jump into patching, and I'm going to try to make short work of this. Everybody's pretty familiar with this. This is when you've got a section that needs some special TLC, you've got to do something more than our preventive maintenance type of work. You've got to get in there and get deeper with that chapter 7. And I am sorry, folks. I cannot make this thing advance very quickly. In terms of patching, you've got, I'm jumping ahead of my slides. We see, if you see when you see the in the hole, that you're not a very happy camper. So everybody pays the pot. In terms of we do our semi-permanent patching when it's when the asphalt plants are patching, which is a technology that's starting to get a little bit more get a little more new in the nasty weather, and then we use mastic patching, which is continuing to grow in use in Europe.
John,
in terms
you have
of
another
our
question?
semi-permanent-
You did say sealing as
Sure.
opposed to filling for moving cracks?
I'm sorry, say that again, Jody?
There's a question from one of the attendees. It says, you did say sealing as opposed to filling for moving cracks?
Yes. Sealing is the technique you use if your cracks are moving. Does that answer the question, Jody?
Yes, he
And if
says,
they got
thank
it-
you.
Okay. If anybody's got any further questions, need clarification, just shoot an email in to Cornell. They'll get those questions to me, and we'll get answers back to you. In terms of our patch, our semi-permanent or area patching, the one thing I want to point out here is don't try to follow the shape of the distress. Square it up around it, because every time you introduce a change in direction, a corner or a jog in your patch boundary, you're introducing a weak spot, because you really can't compact those corners or those jogs as well. So square it up nicely. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, I think. I'm going to try to. Okay, don't want it to look like that. Want to do something like this. And the reason you do that is you've got that deterioration that's jogging back from the, you don't see it, you don't see it, but it's well back underneath the surface from the edge of the hole. So you want to get outside of that hole, cut your boundary, go deeper if you've got problems in your granular material. Replace your granular material with good, well-draining granular material. In terms of your removal of material, get in there with some sort of cutting machine. In this case, a small milling machine. Don't be trying to dig it out with the edge of your backhoe, because all you're doing or your loader, is all you're doing is busting up your pavement, and you're causing more damage beneath the surface. Get in there, put the new material in, get it well, get a good coating of tack coat both on the sides and on the bottom. Some people would argue, well, you're not supposed to use tack on granular material. In this case, not a big enough difference. Just tack the living daylights out of everything. So you're going to get a nice glued surface. Fill the hole. Make sure you got 25% extra, just like you would on any paving project, to account for compaction. And then, quick question, raise your hands if you think this will work. And the answer is no, not unless you're using 1 to 2 inch lifts. If you're doing a 1 to 2 inch skin patch vibratory tamper like this, will work. But you really need to be using a small roller for anything else. Otherwise, if you're in a tight hole and you have to use something like this, you got to be using real thin lifts, so you're not going to get good compaction. And then you want a finished product that looks like that. So anybody seen spray patching real quick? Okay. Well, good. We got a fair amount of folks seeing spray patching. That's a good sign. So spray patching is a pretty interesting technology, and it's starting to, the technology is evolving, and we're seeing continued and growing use in New York. Pretty straightforward. Now go to, let me go to the equipment real quick, and then we'll talk about the process. You've got towable equipment, and or you've got self-contained units. And what this does is, you've got your aggregate and your liquid material in either of those units. You're bringing it up to your hole. You're blowing it out quick. You're going to be spraying in a coat of tack. You're going to be spraying in aggregate, and then you're going to be spraying in more liquid, and then you're driving off. It is it's self-leveling, self-consolidating, does a real nice job. And anybody, the folks that we've talked to that have used this technology like it. So it is available in New York, not used a whole lot, but seeing growing use. And as like I said, as the technology evolved, these things, the inside of these things look like you're flying the space shuttle. Look down cameras, all that kind of stuff. So could be a great technology that's going to see growing use. So why do we do demand patching in or anywhere? Any responses? Quick fix, absolutely. Yep, safety. Boy, you're nailing it. Perfect. Yep, exactly. Yep, you guys are right on top of it. We're doing it. We got to solve a problem, and we're doing it when the weather conditions are terrible. And it is our most common pavement maintenance technique, doing it to restore safety. And a lot of jurisdictions have a 24-hour standard. Now, what we stress here is you want to be using the throw and roll technique that is using a modified material. A lot of places used to use the throw and go approach that was using your conventional pothole patching materials. We strongly recommend you don't use it because as we'll show, it just doesn't last. In any case, your underlying distress is not repaired. You got to get in and do more extensive repairs once the weather gets better and the asphalt plant's open. Here's just an example of throw and go in action. This is David Orr, our director, shared this with us. It is on the Cornell campus. They went in there's the hole that they were trying to just temporarily patch. It's right before the plants are open. Put material in. The next day it was out. They kept using the same approach. They threw it in the hole, tacked it down with the top of the back side of the shovel, and went away, and it stayed in the hole for about 10 minutes. The technique we strongly suggest is the throw and roll technique as opposed to throw and go. You try to get the water out of it, but not necessary. You throw that material in and just, I like this slide because if you look at that material closely, you're seeing the glossiness, and that's the use of the polymer in that material. It's an engineered material, and it's already, once you throw it in the hole, it's consolidating under its own weight. But to really make it work, you back that truck tire, that high pressure tire back over it. It's a pressure activated polymer, just like some pressure activated tapes you would see. You see in a conference room where you want to keep your wires covered. Use a pressure activated tape. You just ride your hand over the top of it and it sticks to anything. That's the same thing that's happening with this material. With a truck tire moving back, pull forward, and you've got your filled hole. And you're good to go other than scrape the edges off. And you've got your pothole filled, and that should take care of you for the rest of the season. And this is just an example of, on the left it's a simulation that they ran in the lab. On the left-hand side is your throw and roll material. On the right-hand side is your throw and go. And as you can see, after 26 seconds, the throw and go is already breaking down. So if you have a long section of road with large cracks, you really can't use crack sealant. What do? And I already gave you half the answer. Anybody got any answers? Well, I'll tell you. You don't cry. You don't crack seal. You don't do nothing because you got to do something. And I would guess that the answer you've put in is use mastic. Yep, there we go. Good, good. So mastic is got a lot of growing use in New York. A great technology. You use it where your pavements are highly deteriorated and your cracks are greater than an inch. Pretty straightforward. It's got two gradations. You use the large grade, the large aggregate gradation for for deep holes, and the fine aggregate or the finer aggregate gradation for thin applications. I'm just going to show you some quick pictures of work that's can be done. You can do it on concrete. As long as the hole is cleaned, it'll stick to rebar. Nice, easy. It's like it's kind of almost like a modified transit mixer. Pushes the material or runs the material out of the chute. If you look at that picture closely, you can see the aggregate in the material. Here's a drag box application, a different kind of drag box application, a buggy application, really nice. And here's a thin application. You're squeegeeing it in, coming off the chute, and so there was a lot of alligator cracking in that corner. They're covering right up. Same, it's a nice finished surface. So you can get mastic. You can get it off the OGS spec in New York. The specs and standards are continuing to evolve, and we're starting to see a lot of work on the national level as well. And so let's get into our thin wearing courses. Just close us out for today. Chapter 8. Again, this is a perfect example of what that's the trigger for when you want to be looking at your thin wearing courses, or what we also call surface treatments. As we talked about before, there's a bunch of different treatments that are available to you. Your chip seal, sand seals, and slurry seals are all emulsion based. Microsurfacing is a specialty application. It's emulsion based. Nova chip is a specialty hybrid application, the combination of your emulsion and overlay. And then you've got your straight up thin asphalt pavement overlays. So here's a chip seal. One thing I want to point out here, nice fan distribution of your liquid coming out of the distributor. Your aggregate spreader is tight up on top of that liquid distributor. So you've got a nice chocolate brown color in your late emulsion, and you've got trucks backed and stacked, so you never run out of stone. Same with the sand seal operation, just using a finer aggregate. When you're replacing an emulsion-based surface treatment like a chip seal, quick question: you want that emulsion to be a deep black color, 70.70. Yeah, no. Well, you don't want it to be a deep black color. You want it to be brown. What is the emulsion? It's a liquid, your liquid asphalt mixed with water at high speed. It's creating a suspension. That's why you're getting that nice brown color. And that's what, when it's brown, it's going to be bonding with the aggregate. So on the left, you're seeing your emulsion. That's representing your brown. Once it breaks, that means the emulsion then separates back into its asphalt and water components. It's going to look black again. If it's black, your aggregate's not going to bond. And then curing is when your water evaporates. So if it looks like this, it's too late. If it looks like this, it's too late. And they're in a world of hurt, because you can tell from this picture, they've realized their aggregate's not sticking. They're backing off. Now they got to figure out what they're going to do with this. In terms of slurry seal, a self-contained operation, nice thin application of a surface treatment material. Microsurfacing is that self-contained unit, but it's also using with a polymer additive that really gives you it's your slurry seal on steroids, gives you a real nice surface. Can be used for filling ruts. There's a nice little rig that the Europeans invented microsurfacing. They did it primarily to fill ruts on the Autobahn, and you can put a rig on the end of the backside of your microsurfacing rig. You fill your ruts. That's what you're seeing on the right side, and then on your left side of the slide, you'll put another what they call their riding surface down. Nova chip is a hybrid operation, which nice. It's a chip seal on steroids, and the key here is you're using your polymer modified asphalt mix But the key is you've got a built-in spray bar that's putting down a real thick polymerized tack coat tack coat. And this is truly what we would call an armor coating application. And then our thin asphalt overlays, that's our standard 6-3 mix. It's up to an inch thick at DOT. Key here is you got to follow your key paving good practices. You got to be paying attention to good. It's got to be good weather. You've got to be watching your material temps. You've got to be using tack coat and joint adhesive. You've got to be paying close attention to your joint construction, your rolling patterns, your joint and mat density. All of those are critical to making that succeed. But if you do it right, it's a great product. And then real quick to close this out, in terms of our paving products, we're all used to hot mix, but now you're going to be used to warm mix. Quick show of hands, who's using or expects to use warm mix this year? Jody, what do we got? Now, I'm going to jump ahead because we're all going to be using warm mix pretty soon.
We
Difference
had
is,
about 11 people raise their hand.
okay, that means there's only 11 people left in the audience. Okay, the hot mix is produced at higher temperatures. Warm mix is produced at lower temperatures. And you'll see that when we're out there on the job. The benefits of warm mix are tremendous. A lot less emissions, a lot less energy is used. It's much better for the workers. You can even get onto your pavement sooner. And the reason I say is we're all going to be using it because DOT changed their specs in late 2021. DOT does not use hot mix anymore. We've removed that item from our specs. We are exclusively a warm mix state. It's the same, getting the same benefits or more, just at lower temperatures. But the key you want to remember when you're working with warm mix, it's 295 max at the paver, and you've got to complete your breakdown rolling before 230. The key here is you've got to talk to your producer before you put any mix down, because you need to know whether you're using warm mix and hot mix, and especially regarding what your applications are going to be. So this is what we want to see. This is what any of our thin wearing courses should look like when we're done. And last but not least, to close us out today, really want to stress the pre-project meeting. You really want to be bringing all your folks together. Anybody that's going to be involved in the operation. You want to have everybody understanding what everybody's role, everybody their own and everybody else's, roles and responsibilities. It's the perfect opportunity to emphasize safety and emphasize doing the project, doing the work the right way, so you don't have to do it a second time. It's also a good opportunity to emphasize keeping good records and developing your contingency plans. There's always something going to go wrong. You're never going to have the perfect project, and these plans give you an opportunity to be prepared, because you're always going to have hiccups. And as always, safety first. Now, typically we would go through an exercise to look at some different pictures. We do this in the class, but this just gives you an opportunity. You can practice on your own. But let's finish out with this. What's the treatment we should be doing here? That's right, plowing the snow. So recapping, we are always applying our pavement management principles: right treatment, right place, right time, right way. We want to be focusing on our pavement maintenance activities. Those are the low-cost treatments, roads in good shape to keep them in good shape. The key focus is going to be to address and maintain the safety of our roadways, and it is the right thing to do because it's the best bang for the buck. We've got a bunch of tools in the toolkit we've talked about. We've got our crack repairs, our patching, and our thin wearing courses. We've got a standardized process that we can apply to pick the correct treatment. And the first thing that we've always got to do when we start picking our treatment is ask the question, how's the drainage? So we've got a wide range of workshops coming up for this season. Our specific to pavement maintenance. We'll be doing a western swing in the end of April and an eastern swing in the beginning of May. Hope to see as many of you as possible out there. In any of these classes, strongly suggest you and your teams get a chance to take one of these workshops, jump on it. A lot of other training resources and opportunities. Check the website. Spring workshops are open for registration. Please get folks signed up. Hope to see you there. And with that, thank you. Any other questions? Please shoot them into the Cornell folks. They'll get them to me and we'll get you some answers. Thank you for your attendance and your indulgence today. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but hopefully it was worth the pain. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.